Welcome back to Faith and Fire. On today's episode, we're going to talk about marriage, particularly marriages of faith. As a single person in their season of singleness, I'm looking around about how do I become that wife, that good, godly wife, that I can find a good, godly man to have a very solid marriage in which God is the center. And so as I explore that, I want to learn more about what it looks like to have a marriage as two people of faith. So to have that conversation today, I've got two wonderful guests. I'm going to let you introduce yourselves.
Hi, Jess.
Hi.
My name is Tracy Lewis, and I've been married to Mr. Lewis 18 years this year.
18 years. I love that.
It's a long time.
It's a decent amount of time.
It's like coming up on 2 decades. And that's how I do it. Like, it's 2 decades. We're almost 2 decades in, people. Holy Lord.
That
Holy
felt
Lord.
different. Like it hit different when you said it in decades.
It hits different. Yes.
I love it. Okay, so Mr. Tracy, can you introduce yourself?
My name is Kelvin Lewis. I am married to this wonderful woman here, Tracy Lewis, for 18 years in Bear Down, Arizona.
Yes, Bear Down.
Whatever.
She works at ASU. I've forgiven her for working at ASU. I've forgiven her.
Sparky is coming
as long
to
as you bring in the
Thanksgiving
check. As long as you bring in the check, I don't care where you work. Just,
I hear forgiveness is one of those foundational things in marriage.
We will get into it.
But for those of us that work in Sun Devil
You went
Country.
to University of West Florida.
Okay.
I did. I am a proud Argonaut graduate. Thank you so very much. Yeah.
So you didn't even graduate from the school and you repping hard.
Listen, you rep where you work.
This is why we had to talk about faith.
This is why faith in marriage matters.
It takes the faith.
Yes.
Well, I'm already hearing one of the biggest things. So I hear that there's forgiveness in the relationship already, which is one of the pillars. What are some of the concepts that you've learned through your faith that have really helped your marriage thrive?
Concepts in terms of just forgiveness, or just concepts in terms of just...
Yeah, any of them. Forgiveness.
This is probably a little bit philosophical, but it's about finding your person's orbit, finding the person's rhythm, and building your life around that rhythm. And if my wife is a very hardworking person, I'm a little bit more laid back. So you've got to find the balance and just find when to step in and when to step out. And then just pay attention to the person's orbit. Figure out ways to where, okay, if they need that time for themselves, give them the space. But when you need time to engage, also find ways to engage them in a healthy manner and not in a self-destructive manner. So that would be my number one thing just for a lot of young couples is find out your person's rhythm, their daily rhythm, their monthly rhythm, their yearly rhythm. Find out when it's a good time to talk about bills, when's a good time to talk about life, when's a good time to talk about Netflix TV shows. And then from there, that's what keeps things interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So their orbit. I love this already. How do you find that?
Trial and error.
Yeah.
Okay.
Trial and error. Like you're going to crash and burn. Like let's be honest. Like there's no perfect marriage. There's no perfect anything, perfect person or otherwise. And I think early on we struggled with figuring out how to function. Because in your head, one, we're both PKs. So, right, you have this idea of what pastor, kid, wife duties, husband duties, all the things are supposed to be based on how you were brought up. And what you quickly realize is that ain't us. And I think it took us a minute to get to a place where we could admit, I am not my mom. I am not his mom. He is not his dad, nor my dad. And that's how we found our rhythm because we were trying so hard to be what we thought we were supposed to be.
Yeah.
That once we came to a place where we were like, this ain't it. And we're starting to be our authentic selves through Christ. But who we are authentically is when we started to figure out, okay, you need a minute. You're in go, you're chill. And it's when you take off the trappings of what church is and what religion is and what you're supposed to be because of tradition that you start to get to the core of who you are.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
I know, right?
It's getting real.
It's just like, oh man. So, I mean, okay, just take off the facade real quick. Cause you know me, we sitting here, we podcast. I'm like, oh, that's a clip. That's a clip. I'm like, y'all just dropping wisdom and we haven't even gotten 10 minutes in. So see, if I were listening, I'd be forwarding it to all my married friends.
And I mean, it's not even one in marriage. You always have to remember everybody's marriage is different. Right. Mm-hmm. And so for us, I look at our friends that are married and the couples that we hang out with, and we all have similarities and differences, right?
Yeah.
But the core of our marriages is our faith. We just live it out differently, right? How we live out our biblical principles and what we were brought up on our foundations, we live out differently, but it doesn't change who we are at our core. I tell people all the time at my core, I am Mahalia Jackson and he is James Cleveland. But sugar, we don't present like that in real life, right? Half the time people forget we're even married because our orbits can be different. But when they're aligned and when we're like here together, that's when I think people realize, oh, I get it. It makes sense.
Yeah.
And it starts with you know, coming to terms with who you are at your core and how you present and what you want to present to the person that you're married to.
That's really important. I'm thinking about the orbit conversation that you just had, and I'm actually doing a whole rewind flashback to last time I was in here talking about love. We did an episode on love, and Brian, he is the host of the Great Love Debate. And he was giving us advice. And one of the things we ended up talking about is finding someone who can match your energy, or at least who understands your energy and won't drain it and won't, like, they can kind of rock with your energy. And that's what that's giving.
Yes.
It's giving like, okay, maybe we're on different levels energy wise today. How do we find a balance? How do we?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think too that you have to have your individual self in tune. You got to be in tune with yourself individually before you can be healthy in a marriage. I think a lot of times people try to rehab themselves through another partner.
Yeah.
Or they bring their baggage to the partner and expect the partner to help them, you know, get rid of the baggage. But you have to do the work internally with yourself in terms of what your triggers are, or are some things that you don't like about yourself, or some things about your partner that if you change something that you do in your daily rhythm, will get a different result. I think if you look at it from that standpoint, it makes a lot more sense in terms of how to live with somebody from long term, because marriage, 18 years, that's, you know, thousands upon thousands of days. I see this person every single day. So you're not going to be the same person every single day. You're going to have times where you're up or down or angry or frustrated, finances, bills, kids. As you know, as a parent, it's just kids is a whole nother dynamic on top of the marriage. But I think you have to be able to be present for yourself and show up for yourself, and then present that to your partner, as opposed to trying to do everything through your partner. Try to do things with yourself, and then from there, use that and then engage your partner, and then from there, your situation can grow. It will never grow if you're always trying to fix issues or do things through your partner. You got to do things with your partner. It's a profound difference between doing things through your partner and with your partner.
Yeah. Okay, that resonates even as a person who's single. I mean, because they always tell you, don't look for somebody to complete you. Don't look for somebody to give you happiness. Find it within yourself. Yeah. So it's the same as true is when you're in a marriage. You need to find the happiness, find the joy within.
Yes. And, you know, oftentimes as Black women, especially when you look at our biblical examples or the women preachers in our lives, it is, I stayed home, right, to raise the children while my husband went out and made the money. And so I woke up at 7 a.m. to have a full face on, to get ready for kids to go to school, and breakfast was on the table and all the things. And then when he rushed off to work, I cleaned all day, and then I went with my sewing class and did all the things. And then I was home, right?
Yeah.
That's not who he married.
Nope.
Right? And that's not who we as, you know, young adult women are today. There are some people that embrace that and love it, and I'm here for it, but that is not me. And so even in listening to the elder women in the church who were like, now, baby, you've got to do this and you've got to take, some of that just isn't me. Yeah. And when I do it, it's really weird, right? Like, I know I cook well. Okay. I don't cook every day because cooking is something he likes to do, but I do know how to cook. I do know how to fix a plate for my husband, and I will do it. But like some of the traditional trappings that we just got so caught up in growing up don't work.
Yeah.
And you have to be adult enough and woman enough to own, I'm not the stay-at-home mom. I am on the go all the time. I'm going to balance my life. I'm going to love you. I'm going to love my children. I'm going to love my friend circle. I'm going to love my church. I'm not going to be there every day the door opens, though. Right? Because I want the balance in my life. And I think once you come to the place where you know yourself well enough to know the balance and understand what you need, that's when you can be a better partner to the person that you're with, because you know what you need and you know how to support them in what they need, and you know when it's time for space, because everybody needs space and time away to reset yourself.
Yeah.
So I think it's a combination of all of those things.
So you talk about this journey to find self and to find your authentic selves individually and in your relationship, and how that was almost complicated a little bit by the fact that you're PKs and some of those examples are maybe super traditional. So can you tell me a little bit, like when you look at the journey that y'all went on to find yourselves and find a groove in your marriage, and you compare it to maybe your secular friends, is it harder or is it easier, or maybe a little bit of both, to be in a relationship that has God at the center?
So that's a great question, because I would argue, and I think we talked about this, I would say that when I first met her in college, she kind of fell in. I was in a bit of a spiritual rebellion against my parents, especially, my parents are amazing parents. They're still married almost 40 years to the day. I wouldn't change a thing in terms of the parents I had or the upbringing I had. But I was in a bit of a rebellious phase. I was wilding. I was out partying and stuff and just doing me, you know what I'm saying? So I was out, like literally, like I'm from Tucson, like I kicked it with the Bloods. I drank 40s with the Bloods, and I was in college.
Such truth.
Yeah. So she got mad at me. She's like, "Why won't you meet your friends?" I'm like, "You don't want to meet my friends. They ain't." But I think what happened was with that rebellion and stuff, I found that in my rebellion, she was a steady presence for me, and she was my voice of reason, where she could bring me back down to earth. Mm-hmm. And I needed that at that time. And I got married at 21, which is, I wouldn't recommend that for anybody. Like, you're not emotionally, financially, mentally, you're not prepared for marriage at 21. Mm-hmm. And I was in school, and we had a kid on the way at the same time. So it was a very volatile situation. And I think when it came down to, okay, doing the right thing and having somebody that will truly have your back, she had my back from day one. There was no questions asked. And she was willing to hold me down and hold the situation down, let me finish college. And then from there, eventually grow out of that spiritual rebellion phase. But it continued for a very long time, well into my 30s, a very long time, where I'm just like, okay, I'm running, I'm doing this, I'm trying to accomplish that. And I really had to stop. I had a life experience where I'm like, okay, you have to slow down. You have to look within, unpeel the layers. Why are you running? Why are you still in this rebellion phase? Through therapy, I was able to really identify my triggers and all my targeted memories and stuff. And then I realized it was a lifelong spiritual rebellion. But in that, she didn't support the rebellion. She supported me. And that's kind of crazy. So we had a conversation not too long ago. And, I'm a musician. I'm Grammy nominated. Like, I've done a lot of cool things in music and stuff. And one day I asked her, I'm like, does my music do anything for you? Like, because I work on music in the house, and, she's working in her office and everything, and I'm making all this music and getting all these accolades. I'm like, does it do anything? She's like, I didn't like you for your music. Mm-hmm. And that really meant a lot to me, because music can be seductive. It could give you a false reality of what the person actually is. But she loved me for me at my core. Yeah. And I trust my legacy with her. So it was an easy decision for me to make to marry her. Very easy decision.
Oh.
I think that in our journey, we were both rebelling. I had moved away from home because I didn't want to be in Florida. I didn't want to be in Fort Walton Beach. And I
wouldn't want to either.
Well, there's so many reasons today why you shouldn't be in Florida. I'm just saying. But growing up, I knew that I wanted more. And I originally moved to Tucson to do 5 years in TV to jump to Atlanta. My goal was to jump to a bigger market. And so I was biding my time, not paying attention, and was also rebelling in my own way. My father had started his church and was adamant about like us being there and being present. And I was like, I'm out. Like, I don't want to do this. And so when I got to Tucson, it was really about me trying to figure out me. And I stumbled on someone that I was not expecting. And what I realized in the course of our years early on, especially when I reflect now, while he may have been rebelling, I was the constant. Like, we all know how to pray, right? We know the Bible. He was a Bible bowl scholar, something, right? Like, we know the Bible. We grew up with it. But in his rebellion, there was none of that, other than the facade of, I play on Sundays, I'm here, I'm the minister of music, that type of thing. And in the background, I found myself walking around the house praying, stuff that like I never in a million years thought I would have done, right? Like the things that are in your core. Again, it's the Mahalia Jackson core. So while all the crazy is happening, I'm like, okay, God, I need you I need you to fix this because I know that this is not how it's supposed to be. And I found myself more and more reverting to my core and reading and being in prayer and trying to make decisions that I thought would benefit us in the long run, even though it might have cost a short-term pain. Real talk, he didn't know how much we got back in tax refunds until maybe 5 years ago.
That's trust.
Because for a long time, I needed to handle that so that it didn't get exploded, right? There were just things in the rebellion that like, I was like, okay, God, we're going to protect this and this because I know we've got to do this tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And even it forced me out of my rebellious phase back to my core. And it gave me the peace to let whatever was happening happen and be okay. Not okay in the storm, but like calm in the storm.
You counterbalance with his energy.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Because if I cut up the way I know how to cut up and he cutting up the way he cuts up,
tear it down.
Somebody would have gone to jail. It would have burned down and it wouldn't have been what I believe my marriage was intended to be.
It would have made a great podcast episode, but maybe not for
not this
you.
Yeah.
On World Star, maybe.
It would have, it would have been a lot. You growing up in church and growing up with your faith, you do revert back to it, even in the moments when it's absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
Even if you don't call on God in a situation. I mean, I think about testing in college, right? Like there were moments where you didn't study and you walked into the room and you were like, okay, Jesus, we gonna make this little test work, right? You revert back to it. And in marriage, while one person might be at an extreme, the other always comes back. Mm-hmm. You're never the exact same. You definitely counterbalance each other.
Okay. So I'm hearing pieces of it, but I'm gonna make y'all take a side. So do you think it's easier or harder being that you had all of that faith? Like because I hear the rebellion piece, like was the fact that you were people of faith, did that add to the marriage? Did it take away from the marriage? Did it make it difficult, easy? Like, talk to me. God in the center.
I had to really grow into being a husband. And like I said, at 21, you're just not ready. And being a husband is about 3 really important things. And if a man doesn't give you this, you need to keep it moving.
Oh, hold on. Let me take my notepad out.
Yeah.
Let me take mine out.
Yeah.
I don't really have a notepad.
There's 3 types of stability that you need in order to be an effective husband. You need to be mentally stable. You need to be financially stable. You need to be spiritually stable.
I love all those things.
We'll take those. We'll take that list.
And then from there, with those 3 things, you have to be consistent. I was a really inconsistent husband very early on, very consistent. Like I said, I was just trying to figure it out. And thanks to my wife, she gave me the grace and the time for me to figure it out. Mm-hmm. And once I hit that, I got an internship at Raytheon, and I think that switch flipped for me where I was like, okay, now I can actually provide and alleviate the financial burden from her. And now I can be there for her in the places she was picking me up at.
Yeah.
And I will say that takes some humility on my end. Like, I didn't have all the answers. I didn't pretend like I had all the answers. But I did go at it headstrong. And there's times where I failed. There's times where I almost got into a pyramid scheme trying to get money. You know what I'm saying? Like, there are times where I did some dumb things and, got fired and stuff and everything. I'm like, oh my gosh, but at those times of crisis, she was the calm in the storm. Mm-hmm. And from there, once I got those 3 things, mental stability, financial stability, emotional stability, that's when the marriage started to really grow and flourish. And people in the community started taking notice of our marriage and our partnership and started pouring into us. And no matter, either in Tucson or in Phoenix, people have always poured into us, especially older people, because they see the fact that we're trying to make this work. And we do have each other's best interests at heart. And people do want to see us win. So that community support is very, very, very important as well.
Sir, I'm going to
say it's harder.
List.
Hold on. It's harder.
Okay.
And it's harder because it's like when you get saved, right?
Ooh.
You walk down the aisle, you're like, I've accepted Christ. I remember when I got saved, I did it because my best friend went and because I wanted to get baptized in the pool at Brackley at RAF Upper Hayford, because you got to jump into the pool and then they would let you walk out to whoever was baptizing you. It's the coolest thing ever, right? you go through these baptism classes and they're like, your life with Christ is going to be different. You're going to have a higher level of accountability, and God is watching you closely because you're one of his children, and you're supposed to go and preach the gospel to your friends and to save souls. And I was like, yeah, no, man, I just wanted to jump in the pool and that. And so that's the first time where you're accountable. And then you get rebaptized because you figure it out and the switch turns on and you're like, okay, God, I get it. When you decide to live a life walking with Christ, you are held to a different standard, right?
Yes.
You're still human. You're still going to make mistakes. You're still going to do all the things, but you are supposed to be set apart. We are set apart. People are supposed to see, for all the bad phrase, people are supposed to see the light of God in you. So like when you're walking in a marriage, when you present perfection.
Yeah.
And what we call the IG marriage, because we do call it the IG marriage, right? The selfie marriage where everyone is like,
nope,
me and the kids,
Yes.
Right? When you present perfection, that's doing the world a disservice.
Yeah.
Because the reality is marriage is hard, but so is walking in your life with Christ, right?
Yes.
Like storms cometh and you've got to pray your way through it, right? Because you're supposed to have this level of faith that's different than others. So it is harder. But there's also the spiritual discernment of understanding a category 1 hurricane versus a category 5 hurricane in your marriage.
Yeah.
A category 1 hurricane in your marriage is your husband opting to go kick it with his friends on a Friday night instead of go to dinner with you. And that's not even a category 1 hurricane. That's a tornado.
Oh, see, you said category 1. I was going to say not taking out the trash.
Right.
So you started at a different level.
Boys do that. I have children that take out trash and we praise God for that.
Oh, me too.
Listen, isn't it a blessing?
Yeah.
It is. That's a storm though, right? Mm-hmm. A hurricane is a financial crisis, a Cat 5, where you've got to literally be like, I trust you to get me through this. And I'm leaning on my faith because I'm trusting you, God, because you put me in this marriage.
Yes.
And you said you're not going to put more on me than I can bear. So Jesus, this Cat 5 that's coming my way, I need you to help him figure it out.
Fix it, Jesus.
You've got to lean. It's harder because you're relying even more on your faith because it's not just you. Yeah. Right. It's me, him. And then there are 2 other people that we're responsible for and their faith walk.
Yeah.
So it's hard. It's harder.
And I assume you also need to be careful not to treat a category 1 like a category 5. Mm-hmm. When he doesn't show up and have dinner with you one night, don't act like it's the category 5 and go off.
Real talk. Everything was a category 5 the first 5 years of marriage.
Yeah, for sure.
There were definitely times where everything was a Cat 5. Like I can remember him being out with the Godfathers and I sat in the window and waited until he came home. I was, because I was like, this man has left me with this child in this house and I told him not to go and he went anyway and he's out with his friends and this is not what you promised me, God. Like I made a thunderstorm a category 5. And then he came home and I made it even bigger, like tsunami. Because of course I stomped my foot and the wave came and he was like, remember, we're young. So I'm going to match his crazy. Right?
Yes.
You're crazy. I'm crazy. So crazy happened in the house. Mm-hmm. And there was no voice of reason or calm. Once you grow to a place in your marriage where everything isn't the Cat 5 storm, and when you truly lean into your faith, like 100%, 10 toes down, lean into it, is when you start to have the real conversations and you're like, okay, go to Topgolf. Bye. I'm going to sit here on the couch and drink some tea. Because it's quiet.
It's tea. Is it tea?
It's tea. It's whatever I want in my cup.
Okay.
It's tea.
We're going to talk about what's in your cup later. Maybe we share.
It's tea for today. It's
okay. We're going to spill the tea later. You see what I did there?
Yes, I did. I appreciated it. But it is harder. I believe it's harder. I do.
I get that. I appreciate you for answering my question directly too.
You like how he didn't answer it? How he danced around?
Now you keep saying wisdom. Now I got that note for later and I'm going to go put it in. My mama tells me each year around my birthday that I'm supposed to manifest. And so I got my manifestation. I'm going to play this back and I'm going to say, God, that's what I want. Can I order that? That's what I want on the menu.
But here's the thing. I didn't order it.
Yeah.
Right? Like that. And that's the thing that I tell anyone, married, single, otherwise. I wasn't looking for anything. Like I said, I was trying to do well in Tucson, to jump to a larger TV market, to meet my personal professional goals.
Yeah.
I sang in the choir for months before I even recognized he was sitting on an organ, right? Like, and he played every Sunday. I led a whole song and still don't, to this day, remember him playing along until someone introduced us. I was not looking at all.
That's what I keep hearing from like the happy married couples. I hear, I wasn't looking. They also meet each other at a lot younger age than I am right now. But
I think it's the same. I don't think that age plays any role in it.
I think it's different now because that was before social media. That was before TikTok and all the other social medias where you can kind of expedite to get it in no process. Ours was as organic as it can be. It was organic, like, hey, let's kick it. I was trying to get an internship because she was at a news station. I was a journalism major at the U of A.
He said I had an agenda.
Yeah, I had an agenda. Like I wasn't looking for a wife, more so a girlfriend. I'm in college. Like I'm out here, partying. Like I'm not looking for a wife. But what happened was, as I started talking to her and really starting to get to know her and stuff, and I just wanted to be around her orbit. I just wanted to be around with her. I wanted to find ways to spend time with her because out of all the crazy, chaotic things that go on in college, going into her apartment late at night on a school night was like peaceful. It's the only time I had peace in my entire life. So I was craving her orbit. I was craving her presence and stuff. And it was so natural. Like I didn't force it. I don't think it felt forced at all. It was one of those situations where, I was just like, okay, this is, I was really serious about, hey, let's kick it. And she was like, no, you're too young. So she was like, yeah, she was like, there's a
5-year age gap.
Yeah.
Like, let's be real.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, like he's being very truthful. I did not know he was the pastor's son until we were legitimately dating. I praise danced with his sisters.
Oh, of that church
yes.
that you were at. Oh.
Did not know he was the pastor's son. Did not know his sisters were related to him. Like his orbit was very different than the church orbit that his parents were in. Didn't realize it until there was a situation I needed to go to speak to the first lady. And she was like, Kelvin, tell Tracy how to get to the house. And I was like, how do you know where the first lady lives? And he was like, that's my mom. And I was like, you are lying to me. Mm-hmm. And it was the most awkward encounter at my in-law's house because he was watching a basketball game with his dad and ignoring me while I was talking to his mom at the table, and I just was beyond put out.
Because that's what you do. You mind your business when someone's talking.
His orbit was so different than everyone else's in the family. Yeah. Now there's clearly a resemblance, right? I look at it, I see his mom when I see him, and when he's around his dad, like I'm like, oh God, the mannerisms. Mm-hmm. But early on, you couldn't have told me he was Pastor Lewis's son because I wouldn't have believed you. I just wouldn't have.
It was incongruent with everything you knew.
Counter culture. All of it.
I kind of revel in that. I kind of revel in being a low key, off the radar type of person. So, my thing is if you need to know, you know. If you don't know, that's cool with me.
She didn't need to know.
But the thing is, like being a preacher's kid in my entire life, like I always had this perception of me of who I am, how to behave, what should I present like, and everything. Look like this, talk like this. So by the time I got to college, I'm like, nah, I'm not doing any of that. I'm just going to be me and everything. So. I was intentional about not being in that same orbit, same rhythm as my parents and my sisters and my community. But I was still serving in the church. I'd play 3 services every Sunday, 7:30, 9:30, 11:30, every Sunday while in college. We missed one Sunday, and that's because we slept in. And everybody was like, "Where is Kelvin?" Like people it was a crazy like, wait, where's Kelvin? Never misses church. And we played hooky that day. And I was like, you know what, but at the same time, if we want to bring this back to faith, I was still faithful to my ministry in all the shenanigans and stuff. I still found a way to be in church. And I think music really kept me engaged in church because I think if it wasn't for music, I probably would have had a much more deeper, more sinister, rebellious phase. But I think music always brought me back to my faith. And I was like, okay, I'm doing this. This is beyond me. This is beyond my gift. This is enhancing the kingdom. This is bringing people together. This is people seeing my light, and I'm able to shine my light. And from there, people are drawn to that. So it was a bigger purpose, but I like being off the radar. I like being low key.
Low key.
Yeah, I'm low key.
And it's funny because you said when we bring it back to faith, and I hear nothing but faith in and out of every part of your journey. Like God was all up in this, yes. And I love that.
Listen, nobody's been to jail. CPS has only been called.
That's not true.
Okay, nobody's been to jail.
You should take that off the list.
Twice.
I'm
Look,
sorry,
twice.
you're right. Twice. So somebody has gone to jail. CPS has been called.
You know, things happen.
I was like, wait, I can't even claim that anymore. Okay. Things happen though, right?
Yeah.
Like you bounce back and you manage it because in the situation, whatever it is, you figure it out.
Ma'am, I could tell when he said it earlier, your face said, I got receipts.
I do, as I think back. But I think what saves us now and what therapy really taught us is you have a ticker tape in your mind. Think of like the ticker tape at the bottom of a newscast where it shows like the weather and the temperature and news.
Got it.
You have a ticker tape of all the crazy shenanigans that run through your relationships, your friendships, your marriage, whatever.
Yeah.
If you let the ticker tape continue to be the negative, every time the person you're with does something, you're going to be like, wait a minute. And here comes the ticker tape with you remember what you did 3 years ago? And it keeps coming back up.
This just in. Terrible husband.
Breaking news from 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But if you take the leap of faith that it takes, and it is a leap of faith to get through a storm, right? And to come out on the other side and to start focusing on the positive, and the ticker tape changes to your positive experiences, to the moments that mattered. You don't ever forget the bad. Like, understand, it's not gone, but I'm choosing to walk in my faith and in my purpose and say, yes, this did happen, but look at where we are and look at how we're growing from it.
Yes. And then at the end, you throw a ticker tape parade.
Right.
I love it.
And it's like, hey, we're here. We're present. Are we perfect? No. Have we had some storms? Absolutely. There's an amazing book coming out, right?
You writing it?
I don't know. It's going to happen.
I'm here for it. I'll read it.
Thank you.
I won't, but put it in an audiobook.
I'm going to make an audiobook and we'll
Okay.
all listen as we walk. But like you have to lean into it.
Yeah.
You have to. Otherwise, you end up on the other side of the negative with the ticker tape. You end up in divorce court when it's not. And I mean, we've been there. I went and got the paperwork, right? Like we both have gone and gotten paperwork on each other and and God always puts us in a position where we're forced to have the tough conversation that we didn't have. And we're forced to go back to our faith because after the argument, after the tough conversation, we're both going, we should probably pray some more. We should probably do some more things together. We worship, I worship in the sound booth. He worships on a keyboard. We should probably worship together, right? And be intentional about those things. Whether they come to fruition or not, it's the intentionality behind how you live out your faith.
Yeah. I love where this conversation went. Let me tell you where I thought it was going to go. When you said the thing about the swimming pool, the reason my face lit up is because I was like, I know where she's going. That's not where you went. Let me tell you where I thought you were going is like you talked about the swimming pool and how you were so excited to just jump in the swimming pool or to get baptized because you just wanted to jump in the swimming pool. And I was like, I know. She's saying it's an analogy for what? For marriage. We were just so excited to jump into the marriage because we just wanted to wear the pretty white dress.
Oh God, no. My dress wasn't even white. It was champagne. It has champagne trim.
Or throw a big party.
Yeah, didn't have a big party. My sister's wedding was amazing. Mine was on $5,000.
It was in duress as well.
And yeah.
I'm sorry, what? Did you say under duress?
Yeah, so she was. So this is part of the story. This is where faith comes in.
Okay. I feel like you have to sign the paperwork not under duress.
Yeah.
Is your marriage valid?
So-
I signed it not under duress.
Okay.
Well, yeah, we didn't sign under duress, but the situation was she was pregnant. Me being the pastor's kid, being the righteous kid, I'm like, I'm gonna marry the woman that, But then I took a step back. I'm like, all right, Kelvin, she's 4 or 5 years older than you. She has a career. She's a great woman. She's a perfect girlfriend. Like, as in terms of girlfriend, best girlfriend ever. And you're like, she's willing to wait for you to grow into yourself. This is an easy decision to make.
Yeah.
So that's when marriage came up. And the way I proposed to her is kind of silly as well because I got fired from Wells Fargo. And I came home. I bought a ring off, I think, eBay at the time. And she didn't think I was going to propose to her. So I pulled out the ring. And the words I said is, you thought I was lying. And her face lit up so much. And the thing is, I was intentional about, hey, okay, I'm going to be there for her because she's willing to be there for me and let me grow into this. And that takes a lot of faith. Because I was like, at that point, I was the only married friend among all my friends, male and female. So now people are looking at me a lot differently. Now they're like, whoa, you got all this weight and stuff. But it never felt overwhelming. I think because of our faith in God and stuff, I knew that, even though rent might be paid late this month, we have a place to live. We've never been evicted. We never had any type of calamities where we are able to bounce back from it. And I think your faith plays an important part in just making sure that you are focused on the bigger picture. Yeah. I think that's what faith does. You have to be focused on the bigger picture. If you focus on the little things, like in dating, you focus on the little things. Like if you want a reason to leave a situation, you could find one easily.
Yeah.
Anybody can leave. That's easy. Staying's the hard part.
Yeah.
And not letting the little things become the big things.
Yeah, no, I didn't want to jump off of a diving board headfirst into marriage. I did not need the big party. That was never me. Yeah. Like I genuinely was about my career. So even my family was shocked when I got married. Like they were like, she's going to do what? And I was like, sure, why not? Let's try this. Let's see what happens. I didn't need that. Mm-hmm. What I needed once we decided to get married and once Jaden was born was him to grow into what I needed. And for me, God convicted me because he was like, you asked for him to be ready yesterday. Like when the preacher does you want stuff in the microwave, like you want microwave religion versus crock pot. That was the conviction for me. And it took 10, 15 years for me to get to a place where I was like, okay, God, I get it. It's not microwave. This is crock pot. And this is actually true slow cooker crock pot. Like slow cook the grits, not microwave. I wanted him to be ready-made day one. And God was like, that's not what I gave you. But also in the growth, it grew me.
Yeah.
And that was the other side. Like there was a lot of times where I was like, it is all his fault. I'm not doing anything wrong. I am the perfect person. I am taking care of Jaden. I am working overnight. I am doing all the things. And God was like, but are you really? Right? And so it forced me to hold up the mirror and look at where I was in my own faith walk and in my own faith walk in my marriage, both individually and collectively, and for Jaden, because we have an amazing circle. And in Tucson, we had an amazing circle of people who poured into both of our sons. But God convicted me on what I was doing as I was trying to microwave him to get him where he needed to be, because I wanted him to be there yesterday instead of where he was in the walk.
Yeah.
And there is such a thing as a wilderness in marriage. Mm-hmm. Like God will absolutely put you in a wilderness situation where you can only rely on him. And you literally have to lean into your faith. And it'll happen and you'll be like, this is some mess right here. Mm-hmm. And then you start to see glimmers of like hope and faith because you're like, okay, God. And then all of a sudden food stamps show up because you're like, how am I going to feed 2 little people? Oh, I actually have to go apply for food stamps because it's the resource. Okay, God, this is humbling. It's 6 a.m. and I'm in line at the food stamp office. God, I never thought I would be here. Okay, God. Okay, so we're here. The wilderness in the marriage, if you can make it through that, you can make it through anything.
Yeah.
And the challenge I think we have as a people, humans, period, is sometimes you get through that first wilderness experience, but you didn't learn nothing. Mm-hmm. So he puts you in another one.
Let me try this again.
And he's like, let's try this again. And for us, it happened probably one epic time and maybe one other time. And I was like, oh no, God, we's not doing this again. I see where we are. And I want to thank you for this little baby wilderness experience. But that previous one, no, we're not going back there. And it forces you to pivot if you're willing and if you have the faith.
Yeah, that's why I'm in this season of whatever's going on that I don't like, let me lean into it, figure out what God has for me to learn here, because I would like to be out, please.
Yes.
I would like to learn it and go.
I would like to get to the lesson and I'd like to not have to repeat it.
Mm-hmm.
And there were a couple of times where lessons were repeated. And I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm tired. Yes. I just want peace in my house.
Ooh.
And it required me to be okay.
You know what just hit me and what you just said is the lessons repeated. That thing that keeps happening over and over and over again that you think is your spouse doing something that upsets you or something. That's the lesson you haven't learned yet. You need to go ahead and figure out what you need to learn from that lesson, because it's not him that keeps messing up over and over again. It's like, what do you need to learn in that moment? Is it patience? What do you need to learn? Is it forgiveness? Is it grace? Is it not to stalk people at a restaurant? Because that's kind of weird.
It's all of it.
All of the above.
Yeah.
It's all of the above. It's marriage is understanding you well enough to help manage somebody else.
Ooh.
Right? I've got to understand Tracy and what triggers Tracy, what makes Tracy happy, what makes Tracy sad, what motivates Tracy, all those things in order to support what motivates Kelvin and what triggers Kelvin. Because I've got to know me well enough to know that I'm good with me. So when I see a trigger, instead of responding with a hand grenade, I can respond with, okay, are you ready to talk about this?
Yeah.
It's a balance. And when you aren't in balance with your faith, that's when it becomes problematic. When you lead with your faith, when you lead with prayer, when you lead with all the things. And here's the thing. None of us are perfect. So I'm not going to walk around and say, I wake up every morning and pray over my house. I do wake up and I say, thank you, God, for another day. However, I'm not the person that's walking around with holy oil, doing all that stuff. Sage. But what I am doing is being mindful and present in my faith so that it can show through my acts in the house and outside the house.
You said acts and I thought of the Bible.
Bible. It's a book.
It's funny. It is a book. I know that book. So look, we can't all be Bible scholars.
We can't. Can we Bible Bowl champion?
2-time state Bible Bowl champion.
Isn't that just
love it.
ridiculous?
That's hilarious.
It's just ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
I would have been eliminated the first round.
I wouldn't have made it through the first. They'd have been like, ma'am. Now, there are some things I have memorized. Like, you know how you have to memorize like in old church, it's the Lord's Supper scripture, like the for I received from the Lord that the night that Jesus was betrayed and we took bread again. I can do stuff like that. I can't do what he does.
I know the Lord's Prayer. Anything you have to repeat every other Sunday,
yes.
Third Sunday,
Got
fourth
that.
Sunday.
On lock.
Yeah.
Done.
Nope, it's not a catechism.
The catechisms aren't they a bunch of books?
No.
Okay.
Like limitations.
No, it's like the word that I'm probably looking for is something in the AV church that we have to repeat some Sunday. I don't know. See, I don't even know what
like
it's
a
called.
litany?
Kind of, but it's in the big like hymnal book.
The red hymn note?
No, ours are blue.
Yours are blue.
Yeah.
See, Southern Baptist, ours is red. It's a red hymn note.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. It's red.
You know what's funny? Because we talked about faith and secular music a little while ago, and everybody was harking on red, and Rihanna uses red, and and the church uses red, and that's hilarious. I know you're not ready for that conversation,
no,
but definitely tune in. So
yes, we're gonna watch together.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. So much wisdom in this conversation.
Is there?
Yes, and I'm going to go back and replay it. I swear.
Oh, God.
If and when I ever end up in a relationship like this, I will take all of those nuggets when I want to throw a rock at somebody, because I feel like this probably happens a lot in relationships where you want to throw a rock at somebody. He's nodding.
I carry hand grenades. It's a backpack.
Oh, yours are more.
They're more lethal. A hand grenade.
I always tell people that her bark is worse than her bite.
It's not true.
She's really sweet.
Listen, don't
bark.
believe the hype.
I don't bark.
Yeah.
I just bite.
It's funny.
That's where the balance is.
I'm a little petty too.
Yes.
I'm very petty.
Yeah.
So, but as we kind of think about the conversation we had and you look back on your marriage, if you were to give a word of advice to somebody who's either newly married, been in marriage for a long time, is struggling in their marriage, anything like what word would you speak into someone's life as they're a person of faith looking to understand how their marriage should be, how to make it strong, how to keep it together?
You want to go first?
Sure. I would say, go to therapy.
Ooh.
Black men, go to therapy.
Black women, go to therapy.
Go to therapy.
Get a good therapist.
Get a good
baby.
therapist.
Our therapist is a godsend.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, would say some stuff, and I'd be like, that is so foul. Yeah, it's so right.
Together, separate, or both?
Separate.
But we did both.
Okay.
We did couples,
Mm-hmm.
but separate. Because you got to work on you.
Yeah.
And I can't work on me if he's sitting there and he's the trigger.
Right.
But for couples, marriage counseling is really about how you bring your whole self into it. Yes, therapy cannot be a bad word in society anymore.
We talk about orbits. Then couples therapy is when two worlds collide.
Yep.
Yes. Yes.
So I would say go to therapy and listen to God. Trust and listen to God. And the way God works, and especially as, the quote unquote head of the household, the man, he's going to give you signs. He's going to give you signs. It's not going to be overt. It's not going to be a situation where you're going to get the message right away. He's going to move some things around your life. He's going to move some people out of your life. He's going to maybe transition you from another job and stuff. And you really have to listen to God. And I think because men, we're programmed to work and provide, we don't take a chance. We don't get the opportunity to just sit down and just listen to God and pay attention to what God's telling you.
Yeah.
Because you're so occupied with, okay, I got to take care of this, take care of this. You're responsible for the function of the household, and you have to be engaged in that, because you can't be lackadaisical about that kind of stuff. But there are times where God will intercede. He'll bring people in your life. He'll bring a message to your life. And you have to really sit and absorb it. Don't analyze it, absorb it. So I would just say, trust God, go to therapy. And those two things will give you a sense of self that is so strong that you will become the rock in your relationship, where you'll hold everybody down. Everybody will feel safer around you. Everybody will want to be in your presence. Everybody will make sure the trust factor comes there, because now the whole submission topic, that whole thing, why submit to your husband as he submits to.
I didn't say that in my vows, by the way.
Yeah.
I didn't say.
I'm sure you didn't. I love you.
You know what?
It didn't happen.
I think people misinterpret that, but the thing is, like, I had to submit myself to God because I don't have all the answers. I'm not the person that has all the answers, and there are times where I don't have the answer, and I have to just sit and be like, okay, can we talk about this tomorrow?
Yeah.
Can I, give him some time, or we'll revisit this another time. So having the wisdom and the spiritual discernment to understand, understand the timing, understand the orbits, understand the rhythm, and understand when God speaks and when to move. Because if you don't move, you'll go into the same storm or the same wilderness experience. When God speaks, you need to move. And once you move, that's when God reveals your path to you. And you're like, oh, and I can say this honestly for the first time. Like, I'm very proud of the person I've become, because I've had a moment to sit back and reflect. And I'm just like, man, like, if my 21-year-old me saw me now, like, he would be blown away by all the cool things I've accomplished. And I'm still married to the love of my life. So you can have it all. You can have the Grammys. You can have all that stuff. And you can have the wife and the family. But you have to trust God and listen to God when he tells you to move. Now, to the willingness part, God will tell you to move into another location, and that way he can reach you. Because there are times where you're so caught up in the routine of things. You're so caught up in the routine of your work, your community, your family, basketball games, this and that. You're not listening. You're just going through the motions, and you're just working. You're not listening.
Yeah.
Take the time to pause and consider.
Ooh, okay. See, you let him go first, and he done dropped all this wisdom.
And I don't, listen, if I could tell younger me one thing, or anyone, I would say it is to give yourself the grace that you need in order to get through whatever the situation is, right? I love a hand grenade. Like, I live on the line. I'm going to make noise. I'm going to question. I'm going to throw a hand grenade in a situation to start a debate. That's how I am. It's really who I am. Like, I love a good debate.
Me too.
Sometimes you just don't need to debate.
Yeah.
And in marriage, you will find yourself on the cusp of a great debate, an argument. And sometimes you don't need to throw the hand grenade, right? So it's knowing yourself well enough to be like, Tracy, today you might want to sit this fight out. Everything doesn't have to be a battle. And sometimes to make the peace that you want in your house, you just have to put the sword down and put the backpack down and be willing and vulnerable to talk through situations. When I was younger, I was not that. I want it my way. I'm married. I'm the wife. This is what we're doing. You will not do this. You will do this. Only to realize.
I would look at, really? Okay.
And then would leave. And then I'd be up in the window till 2 a.m. going, well, he left.
Like the girl on Love is Blind.
Yes. Looking wise and otherwise stupid, but with a ring, right? Mm-hmm. No different than the single person you have to be willing to to step back from what you're normally used to doing.
Yeah.
I tell my undergrads and single friends, I'm like, your line when you're single and dating folks, so different than my marriage line. When you get tired of a friend, bye, right? You can break up with somebody because they looked at another woman, because there's no skin in the game. There's no stake in the ground. There's no nothing. In marriage, I have to put a stake in the ground. I have taken vows, except for that one about, the other stuff. All the things. I am here. I am 10 toes in. I have prayed. I have done the Lord's Supper. We washed feet. Did we wash feet at our wedding? No, we took the Lord's Supper. Yeah. All those things, right? So my line as a married woman is very different.
Yeah.
Or it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And in early Tracy, if I could tell her anything, it is, remember, your line is different and everything isn't a war. Yeah. And sometimes you just need to be silent and pray and listen to God, because despite all of the crazy, despite all of the sad moments, in all of it, I rejoice, because even through the crazy, I see where God was still present.
Yeah.
Even in the waiting up at 2 a.m., which was wild and stupid. I should have gone to sleep because I had to go to work the next day, but stubborn, right? Yeah. In that, I still see the praise in the moment, because I was singing myself calm, right? And I was singing church songs because I needed to be calm, and it didn't need to be Bone Thugs and Harmony.
You can't sing Turn Down for what when you're already hyped.
When you're hyped. Like, I was already hyped, and I was like, okay, God, I need to calm down.
Yeah.
And I found myself doing things, again, going back to what your core is and how your faith shows up. Sometimes you just need to put the weapons down.
Yeah.
And just be willing and vulnerable to listen.
And pick up isn't it supposed to be like the weapon? Well, the armor, the full armor of God.
I hate you for
put
that.
The weapons
it's the sword and the shield.
It is
and
the sword and the shield. But I don't know the Bible like that.
6.
I'm not the scholar.
He is, and he just quoted it, Ephesians 6.
I want to piggyback on that. So equity. The difference between marriage and dating is equity. You build equity in marriage.
Yes.
Like a house.
Like a house, like a family community. You build equity. You build social currency. You build political currency. You build financial currency when you have equity in the game. And the equity is very hard to walk away from, because then you have to start over with somebody else and rebuild the equity. That's why a lot of people stay in marriages. It's not because they don't, it's that. And then also you have to realize, like, we're on the same team. Why are we fighting each other?
Yeah.
We're on the same team. What are we doing?
That part.
Sometimes you'll be saying the exact same thing and you're just yelling at each other.
You're yelling at each other.
Like,
and then you're like, well, crap, we're saying the same thing.
I want a comma in the center. You didn't put a comma in the center.
Yeah,
right.
Like,
when the argument gets circular, it's kind of like, oh, we are saying the same thing. We're just saying it differently. Mm-hmm. And because we're not listening to each other, we're yelling at each other. You are missing the point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Ooh, okay. Y'all done. I cannot. I have so many good tidbits that I've learned from you today.
You're
and I'm
wild.
not even married, that I can apply to my life. And okay. Well, I appreciate y'all sitting down with me today and having this conversation.
Thank you for the invite.
Thank you.
I'm sitting as all my married friends, even my single friends, my dating friends. Like, I feel like it's just good nuggets. She's like, I don't hear.
Don't do it our way. Don't do it our way.
Yes, like that, and that's the other thing.
Laugh at my pain, like Kevin Hart.
It's that, but it's also realizing our marriage is not our friend's marriage.
Yes,
everybody does it differently. Whether you were brought up in the church, whether you are walking with Christ, or whether you're 10 toes down like a preacher's kid, you're all doing it different. And the hardest part about growing up in the church and then starting a marriage is really realizing that some of those traditional things that you did, you don't need.
Yeah.
And you've got to find your own path with Christ on your journey and be okay that it doesn't look like my parents' marriage.
Yeah. That's beautiful. So, okay, fine. I'm gonna find my own path. I'm gonna encourage others to
use it
find
on
their
your
own
path. And I'm believing, I'm claiming a couple things in 2024. Let me put your hands out and receive it. What we're claiming.
We're gonna
Hallelujah.
get some tea later. Wink, wink.
It is tea in my cup.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. We appreciate you having you here in the circle. Hopefully you got some nuggets for yourself, whether you're married or you're single or you're dating. There's lots of goodness here that we can learn about ourselves as we then learn how to be a better partner to someone else. So if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe. Forward it to a friend that's married and give them a word of advice for their lives. And we look forward to hearing you or seeing you in the next episode.